Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to give you my first thoughts on the Nike Zoom Fly 3. So the Zoom Fly 3 is finally landed, and I can tell you it's a very different beast to the previous two iterations. I'm here to give you my concise and honest opinions about the shoe today, shooting from the hip. There are some top deals out at the moment for the previous iterations of this shoe. Please go and check those out. I'll post some of those in the description below. The original Zoom Fly and the Zoom Fly Flyknit are both on sale with some really great prices. I've seen the Zoom Fly on sale for as little as £45 and the Zoom Fly Flyknit for as little as about 60. So do look around, do shop around. There's lots of different colorways available. So the Zoom Fly 3 has just launched over here in the UK, just at the end of last week. I'm very excited to give you my initial opinions on it. I'm excited to see if they've improved on the previous two shoes, which I've really loved. I've loved both the Zoom Fly and the Zoom Fly Flyknit. I did an extensive amount of training in the latter. So first up, a few specs of the shoe. They have actually increased the weight of this shoe very slightly. So thinking about the Zoom Fly first, this shoe was around about 280 grams with the carbon infused nylon plate. Obviously the Zoom Fly 3 is now up to about 300 grams. I've measured it on a couple of different scales, but it's coming in about 20 grams heavier than the Zoom Fly. Obviously this has the carbon fiber plate. I don't know if it's exactly the same plate as in the Vaporfly 4% and the Next percent, but it certainly is advertised as having that carbon fiber plate. So we've got a new type of material on this version of the Zoom Fly. It features Vapor Weave, which is the same stuff apparently as on the Next percent. I don't know if it's a slightly different variant of it. It does seem similar. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same. Maybe the knit or the weave is very slightly different. It's certainly got some similar design touches here on the upper as the Next percent, but the lacing system is drastically different. It features a number of loops either side of the forefoot which link up together. There's a reinforced kind of plastic section that holds those loops, and the tongue is of this neoprene material, very similar in feel to the Pegasus Turbo 2. There's some venting holes here. I'll try and throw up a picture of those on the screen for you. The upper has a similar flare to the Pegasus Turbo 2. It's almost like a type of wetsuit material. It feels like kind of a diving apparatus almost. I did find it a little difficult initially to get into the shoe, so I would urge the use of a shoehorn if possible to get into this one. Although, who carries a shoehorn when they go to races? Maybe you do. If you do have a shoehorn when you go to races to put your running shoes on, post down in the comments. I'm wondering whether this neoprene type material is going to sort of stretch over time and become looser. I don't know. I'll comment on that perhaps after a few runs and see if it begins to stretch and maybe the shoe's a little easier to get on. Very similar to the next percent, we've got some cushioned pieces inside the opening of the shoe around the heel area. They don't actually run right the way round, they're just on either side of the heel. So initially putting the shoe on, did feel very comfortable, if not a little snug. It's nowhere near as forgiving as the Flyknit material on the previous iteration of the shoe. That more flexible, almost like chainmail type knit on the Flyknit is a lot more forgiving, I find, than this Vaporweave. Whether it will start to loosen up after a while, I don't know, but certainly fit initially for me was quite snug. It's kind of like a mesh material running through the shoe, goes all the way round the inner part of the shoe, obviously reinforcing the strength of the shoe somewhat. And there's a more elasticated type material around the forefoot area here, which I think is to help with stability and to get a better lockdown. I'm not a big fan of the laces that have been included on this iteration. They're those flat laces, and they do seem to come undone from time to time. I know that Forest of Dean runner has had similar problems with these. I'm always having to run a double knot on the Zoomfly series, so just something to bear in mind. Maybe I could experiment with some laces, perhaps some sort of lace review video. No. So my third toe on my right foot took a bit of a pounding in my first run out in these shoes. It's not been great anyway recently. I've been doing a lot of miles, switching shoes quite often, which isn't probably the best idea, but I do want to test all these shoes out and give you my opinions on them. There's not really any pain there from the toe, it's just starting to look a little bit black. So going to switch up to the Nike running socks when using these shoes in the future. The tab socks are a little bit thicker. I think perhaps I need a little bit more space when using this shoe, so going to switch to the thinner Nike socks. So moving on to the midsole and the outsole. So the outsole really at first glance seems very, very similar to that of the next percent, but there are some significant differences. So these rubber pieces at the back around the heel, they seem to stretch further around to the back of the shoe. So I'd imagine trying to provide a bit more protection to the midsole material. Another major difference is the stretched nature of that rubber portion on the forefoot here. It isn't quite as stretched, and I think this material seems quite different than that on the next percent. It's nowhere near as sticky. I'm thinking perhaps the next percent traction pad here is a bit weight relieved, so maybe they've taken a few areas out to try and reduce the weight somewhat. Whereas here that doesn't seem to be so much of a target for Nike. They haven't done the same thing, and it certainly just feels a lot heavier. The material certainly feels different that they've used here on the heel and on the forefoot. It's definitely a different type of rubber. So we've got React here in the midsole. I really liked the React in the Zoomfly Flyknit. I did a hell of a lot of miles in that shoe and really enjoyed them. Used it for some racing as well as just training, tempo runs and such. But as I say, this time around the shoe is a little bit heavier, around 10 grams heavier than the Zoomfly Flyknit. Now it's still a pretty light shoe. It's still a shoe you can use for racing, but there is that trend now, 20 grams difference between the Zoomfly and the Zoomfly 3. It's getting heavier and heavier, and I really did feel quite a difference in the weight since I've been training recently in the New Balance Beacons, in the Pegasus 36 and the Pegasus Turbo 2. The ride of the shoe reminded me of something perhaps somewhere in the middle of the next percent and the Zoomfly Flyknit, but with a much heavier feel to it. I found the back of the right shoe of the pair I received really unstable, almost like I was kind of falling away off to the right in the heel. I never found that in any other Zoomfly series. I've got quite a few of those that I've used for training, and I just feel like I'm just falling away if I put any sort of weight onto the back right side of the right shoe. I'd say this certainly isn't a shoe if anyone has any pronation issues. It's going to cause you some problems. So when picking up the pace, I really found this shoe starts to shine. The shoe really gives you those signals to push your pace, push that cadence. I noticed at the end of my run that my cadence was much higher than perhaps a normal run on that route. So I'd say this shoe really isn't useful at lower paces. This isn't going to be a shoe you can utilize on those easy day runs. This is certainly one for those tempo runs, perhaps where you're working at threshold paces or doing some interval type work. I have to say the React and the carbon fiber plate here and the upper as well are kind of a strange combination to me. You can probably tell I'm a bit kind of undecided about this shoe after my first run. So this shoe has some design cues from the Vaporfly Next Percent, but that Zoom X is just so much more forgiving in terms of the cushioning. This is a much denser material, and in no way is it a similar feeling shoe. I think the Next Percent handles perhaps slower paces better than this shoe due to the cushioning of the Zoom X. The React in the midsole, coated with the carbon fiber plate, just really won't handle any lower paced runs at all. This is for speed work only. So I'll keep on persisting with this shoe and give you an update in a few weeks' time as to how it's feeling, see if I'm getting on a little better with it, but up to now, a little bit undecided. A few last notes about the Zoomfly 3. I would suggest going true to size with this one. I've found it a little snug in comparison to other Nike shoes that I've been testing recently, but I think you can probably go true to size and you will be fine. That aside, if you get to test the shoe out in person, I would always recommend that with any running shoe. Achieved a relatively good lockdown in this shoe. It is quite a rigid shoe while running, so you need a good lockdown, otherwise your foot's going to start slipping around here at the heel area. I didn't really feel any of that. The shoe felt good on foot and there were no real issues getting a good lockdown. Aesthetically, I think this is a really fantastic looking shoe. I do like the use of this darker material just behind the vapor weave. It really does give some different shades and certainly a comfortable shoe in terms of the upper. I didn't manage to get through any water. I think other YouTubers already proven that this shoe is pretty good and handles water much better than previous iterations. Obviously a slightly different heel to toe drop on this shoe. It's around about 8mm. That's not been confirmed, but it certainly does feel different on foot. Okay, so if you've worn the Zoomfly 3, please comment down below, tell me what your experiences have been. I'd like to say thank you for watching. Thanks for all the new subscribers. It would mean an awful lot to me if you would consider subscribing to my channel. Please click that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications of new videos when they're released. Hit that like button and comment below. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you.